This is what the most. You never bring your kids in. I mean, you kids outside.
Let's go. All right, are we ready? Okay. Termination of the quorum. We already did that. We already did that. Call to order. Yeah. If you could join us, please, as Mr. Tom Kelly leads us in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. That brings us right to the budget hearing presentation.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Laughlin, who is going to take us through our budget. Thank the Board of Education for their work and support of the budget process. Ms. Laughlin, take it away.
There you go. So as we started each of our budget workshops, we start with the board goals. So we're going to just regroup back to the original 5 goals. Each meeting, we kind of honed in on different ones as per the topics of the budget that we were presenting at the time. So again, this budget does focus on the 21st century learning environments, the fiscal and educational solvency of the district, students as self-directed learners, communication and community engagement, as well as social emotional learning, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So some things we just want to touch point on is, the pride that we hold here in the district, here at St. Mauritius, both in district as well as our community. And as you recall, I believe last meeting or the meeting prior to that, students came and presented their MYP projects, their community projects. It's a great thing that we're starting to see come to life now with the IB program, incorporating our children out there in the community and sharing the work that they're doing and doing it for good causes too on top of that. We've got the No Place for Hate designation at Clayton Huey. Both middle school and high school should be receiving that designation this year as well. The ENL Family Connections Program has been taking off. Ms. Slipstein is running that program with our ENL families. Started out as a very small group and has expanded to double, triple the size of what she started with. And she's holding great events to educate not only the students, but the families with programs going on in the district, helping them fill out college applications, financial aid forms, and just exposing them to different services that they are eligible to receive out in the community. We are expanding clubs and student involvement, both through the general fund as well as with the federal funding that we're receiving. The technology enhancements, if you recall, this year we replaced all the old smart boards with smart TVs within the classrooms. We are working on the one-to-one initiative, K-12. Our teachers are receiving Chromebooks next year. Social emotional learning supports are occurring district-wide. We've done mental health training district-wide in district office throughout the course of this school year. The diversity, equity, and inclusion committee is working. We have DEI liaisons, DEI training, a DEI policy. So that is moving forward with speed. And then CEO Works is a great program that happened right before the holiday break of April, where some outside companies came in to meet with the upperclassmen and just talk about networking and expose them to different environments and different careers that are out there in the world for them to pursue. So this is just some building level community, building level points of pride. A lot of them are repeats, some things that we've gone through in the past, the IB program district-wide, the No Place for Hate, Harmony SEL in the elementary school, high school bringing in the attendance recovery program, the middle school, kind of revamping some educational spaces, as you can see here in the library, as we're working through making it more inviting spaces for learning, 21st century learning for all of our children. These are some, large items that we've received, some recognitions we received over the course of the year. We are a School of Distinction for athletics, our AP College Award. We have the Best Communities for Music Education, again, the No Place for Hate designation, as well as our community projects through the diploma program that our children are involved in. Some points of pride within our music and fine arts, as well as athletics and technology. A lot of children participating in Himiya, NISMA, and NISPDA again this year, now that we are coming out of the pandemic. Those events are happening in person, and we've had great participation within those areas for our children. We've had the middle school theater program this year for the first time, and the high school program, which is happening this weekend. So we're excited to see the kids back on the stages performing and doing what they love. The athletics, again, the Scholar Athlete teams, we're a School of Distinction. We are one of the only, I believe, 6 teams on Long Island to have a girls flag football team that was implemented this year, courtesy of the New York Jets. And we are looking to continue running that program. I believe they won their first game yesterday. We are also seeing a lot of representation in county championships continue throughout all sports levels and all seasons. In technology, our robotics teams are back out there competing and doing well. The one-to-one Chromebooks are being rolled out and continuing out there. We are working to replace any Chromebooks that are aging out from years prior. And again, like I mentioned before, the new smart boards are in the classrooms, and staff Chromebooks from grades 7 through 12 will be implemented next year. So something we do want to talk about, though, is the mental health of our students. What we've been seeing as a result of the pandemic. The U.S. Surgeon General put out a study protecting the youth's mental health, and you can see some various quotes from that. We're seeing significant impact on our children. We're seeing them withdraw from programs, not be as actively involved, some psychological distress that's going on. And so we're looking at that and trying to decide, how do we help our children? What is best that we can do to support them as we move forward into next school year? As we've been doing pair assessments and trying to understand what are the needs of our students here in St. Mauritius. In addition, we're reviewing studies and that have been done. So Times Union up in Albany had written an article, as well as NBC, on the impact of the pandemic and the discipline issues that not all districts are seeing across the states, not just here in New York, not just on Long Island, but it is happening out all over the place. So as a result of that, we are looking at the pandemic impact, and as we assess that, we've noticed that there's an increased discipline need at the high school, as well as increased mental health need district-wide. So in 21-22 school year, current year, we added a social worker district-wide. We added a .2 FTE guidance counselor through the BOCES program at the elementary school. We have implemented the mental health first aid training, and that training was offered to all staff, not just teachers, but paraprofessionals, custodians, bus drivers, security guards, kitchen staff. We made it available to make sure that everybody was involved in that training and can spot the needs of the student at any point in time. We have additional E&L support in place, as well as the SEL focus. For next school year, we are adding two FTE teachers at high school, English and social studies, and 1 special education teacher at the elementary. At the high school level, adding those 2 teachers will allow for additional staff to be out in the halls and recognizing children and their needs, making sure we can alleviate some of the disciplinary issues that we are seeing at the high school. And in addition to that, up at the high school level, we are looking to add an assistant principal. By doing that, we would be changing the current assistant principal / athletic director position, and that position would become a sole athletic director director/facilities/security director. And again, that allows for more supervision within the buildings. It allows for an assistant principal to be dedicated to discipline needs, somebody to be able to be out there and seeing our children and be a face for the district, and then allows the AD to focus on some of the security measures and facility measures.
Yeah, and this is something that, the reason we included some of the stuff on mental health and the student discipline and accountability is because it's not something that's unique to Seneca Riches. It's something that we're seeing throughout the state. It's something that we're talking about with our colleagues. In the next 2 days, I'll be up in Albany, in Saratoga with state leadership conferences. And this is one of the topics of conversation. I can tell you that in section 11, we've changed our suspension rule for sports. It used to be that there was a 1-game suspension and then a 2-game suspension and then a suspension for the entire season if athletes got into fights. We're seeing so much more of this in section 11 that we've changed it immediately to an immediate 2-game suspension and then a loss of privileges to play the sport. So a lot of these things are happening, and we don't bury our head in the sand. When we see something that is a need here, we're willing to have conversations about it. That's a conversation that our administrative team had. Our teachers have indicated, somewhat of a deterioration of some of the discipline in the high school. And that's a fact that is coming out of some of the circumstances, perhaps from the pandemic and the way kids have reacted to that. We're seeing behaviors that happened with, that normally we would see in middle school children acting. We see now high school children acting that way. The students really didn't have an opportunity to get some of that out in the middle school years because of the circumstances. So we really believe that this is something that can really kind of be a cultural shift in our high school if we can have somebody that really is attending to those needs of our kids. Clearly, it's one thing to have a code of conduct, but we're looking to be very progressive, looking to work toward things that are more culturally responsive in practice and more restorative in practice. We are really looking, I look at this as a K through 12 SEL initiative, and the assistant principal role would play a part of that. Currently, the role that Mr. Thode plays is just a tremendous role. It's a role that was put in place several years ago as a budgetary necessity because we did not have the ability to fund, the administration as it was needed. A role where you have an associate principal that is also the athletic director and also the director of fine arts and the director of FACS, it's just an enormous role. And we believe that the security role and the facilities role really do go hand in hand with the role of the athletics, because those two things really could serve under his purview. And so we believe that this will be a really positive step for us to go. And clearly, some of the changes we've made recently, we did have the retirement of the security director. That was an outside agency. The resignation of the security director. That allowed us to think more creatively about how we would utilize that funding. And some of this funding is coming from federal grants made available through the obviously the pandemic relief and they refer to as the CURSA money. A couple of years ago when I first came in, the board had asked me to do some work on do an examination of administrative roles throughout the county. So what I did do, again, when you add an administrator, you want to talk about, you want to justify and say that this is something that we should really have. The needs at the high school are such that we really do believe it's necessary. But when we take a deeper dive into what's happening out in the county and what the administrative positions in the county that exist are, we did take a look at every single district between 1,000 students and 2,000 students, and we found that Seneca Riches was relatively understaffed with regard to administration, with 10 administrative positions district-wide, from building to central office and district-wide positions. Whereas, every other district has, 11. We have 1,513 students. Southampton has 1,471, and they have an extra administrator. Every other district has at least 2 extra administrators in their district. So we do believe that this is an expense that will, as I indicated, be a cultural shift for us, something that can really hold kids more accountable within our school. But this is a part of a bigger picture because, as I said, it's a part of that mental health wellness initiative that we have going K-12. The addition of teachers in the secondary is also a help because when we add a teacher into the social studies department and the English department, it provides us more flexibility for supervision. Teachers who have to teach extra periods, which has been the practice here, do not have duty periods, and so we have less supervision in our hallway. So collectively, we believe that this will provide a much more safer learning environment for the students at the secondary campus.
So we'll move on to the actual budget now, the numbers that are making all of this up. You'll see here the state and federal aid are a large portion of our budget. And we're a major conversation throughout the budget process. Foundation aid, we've been underfunded since inception, really. Since 2016, you can see it's about $4 million short each year that we were not receiving. And now with the implementation that foundation aid is to be fully funded over the course of 3 years, we are seeing a significant influx of funding come through. It's about just over $2 million each year, which is helping stabilize our programs and keep things moving forward. The federal funding, it is a little hard to see on here, and I do apologize for that, but the ARP money is designated for specific purposes. So we have learning loss money, we have summer learning, and we have attendance programs that are required to be running in order to ensure we can have our children catch up from what they may have lost over the pandemic. So we do have 2 more years going forward with these funding sources. So overall revenue, this is just a summary chart of where we're getting the funding to support the budget. You can see the tax levy is the largest revenue source that we have. It's just about 53% of our revenue stream, with state aid being about 33%. Tax levy is at the maximum of 2.427%. That is our maximum allowable, and we are going to that number in order to make sure we can implement what we just spoke of earlier, as well as keep all current programming in place. So just a summary quick of the 3-part budget is made up of the administrative component, capital component, and program. The administration component is all of the administrators plus their support staff and benefits as it relates to that. It also includes our legal fees, district insurance, curriculum support, professional development, district membership fees, auditors, all those type of overhead costs to run a school district. Capital is just that. It is anything that has to do with our capital investment, our buildings and grounds, staff salaries and benefits, the cost for building maintenance, the cleaning supplies, district security, district debt, as well as all of our utility costs fall into that category. So you can see here, both of those 2 categories are just over 10% of the overall budget each. And the program component, which is about 80% of our budget, is just that. It's all the programs that we offer to our students. It is the transportation costs for our students. It's the programs for our students with special needs, athletics, technology, fine arts, any subscriptions we have for the students to be using in the classroom. That all falls within the program component of the budget. So just to recap the past few months of budget work that we've been doing, our 22-23 budget does maintain all current programs. It does also expand our programs through staffing additions by the social studies and English teacher up at the high school and adding the DCT teacher down at elementary. We are continuing to utilize the federal funding to support some of our programs. The budget is tax cap compliant. We have a Chromebook replacement and technology upgrades rolled into this. It's a leasing program through Eastern Suffolk BOCES, which minimizes the cost on the annual budget each year. We have capital improvements, just some minor improvements, anything that's really less than $10,000 that needs to be done within the district would fall within the budget. We do have increased security measures, such as adding a security guard at Clayton Huey for 4 hours through the course of the regular school day during recess times. And we have administrative realignment of the high school AP, as Dr. Massaro just talked about. So another part of the budget is the capital outlay program that we started working on this year. We did the water fountains and the exhaust fans at Clayton Huey. We also did water fountains here at the high school, but that was using federal funding to support that project. They're one-year projects completed within just 1 year's time. It's $100,000 maximum allowable to be spent, and it has to be spent in one building for one specific purpose. So our proposal for next year is to renovate the bathrooms here at the high school. We are currently working with vendors as well as the architects to come up with the plan for what those bathrooms will look like. If it's a complete overhaul or if it's just some upgrades to the female bathroom by the nurse's office as well as the female and male bathroom in front of the auditorium. In addition to capital, we are looking to establish a capital reserve. It would allow the district to just start that reserve. Funding is not guaranteed at any point in time. It is not a budgeted expense item each year. It actually is funded through savings throughout the course of the year. So at the end of the year, as we finalize our financial statements, any savings we have within expenditures or additional revenue received, and we're trying to determine which reserves would be funded. This just becomes another reserve to discuss when we are going through that reserve policy and our funding limits. Again, there's no impact to taxpayers. The voters approve the establishment of the reserve. The voters also approve the spending of the reserve. So once we do accumulate funds in there to offset a specific project, we would then go to the voters for approval to spend it on that particular project at that point in time. So the budget overall, $47,576,400. That is Proposition 1, whether or not the community members support that. Proposition 2, I will not read this whole thing. It is very lengthy. It is to establish that capital reserve, a maximum of $5 million to be spent through use of savings only and not to be through taxpayer dollars. And then we do have the election of 2 board members. Laura Sliosky as well as Marcus Babazian are running for the Board of Education for those 2 seats. The annual budget vote is on Tuesday, May 17th. Polls open at 7 a.m. They close at 9 p.m. It is held in Clayton Huey Main Street Gym. And absentee ballots are available in the district clerk's office in the central office, Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. And that's it. Any questions from the board?
I do not have any questions.
Carrie, could you go back 2 slides to the capital reserve? So for those voters that are listening, could you summarize or explain why it's that long and what they should calculate in case they don't spend that much time?
So what's listed in here is all of those potential projects that this money could be used for. So there is a lot in there: heating, ventilation, air conditioning, the clock system, the public address system, building envelope improvements, which could include windows, any leaks that might be happening on the roofs, furnishing, the acquisition of furniture, equipment, machinery, planning costs, all of that is included. So that's what that language mostly speaks to. It is giving us the groundwork for what the reserve could be used for. It details out that it's a $5 million maximum contribution. We can only carry $5 million in that reserve, and it is to be funded over the course of 10 years. There are times where we may not fund it at all. There's times where we may be able to put $500,000 in, or we might only be putting $50,000 in. And like I said, that is to be determined at the end of each school year as we close out the year with any excess funds that we might be seeing through savings. So we typically spend about maybe 8% of our annual budget. So with that, we do have funds left over once we meet a maximum allowable 4% that we can carry over. We then determine from that what reserves we want to fund. We typically do fund the employee retirement system, the employee benefit accrued liability reserve, as well as our repair reserve. And now we'll be able to establish a capital reserve, fund a capital reserve for the future, when now we're going to start talking about a capital bond at potentially our next board meeting. Is that conversation will start moving forward, that this reserve will help offset that project. So that is our ultimate goal. I think that's it in a nutshell. Clear?
So maybe 3/4 or 80% of that is just establishing future flexibility on how to spend the reserve funds.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Drafted by legal, which is why it's very important. Anything else?
Yeah.
Good.
No, I just want to remind people they can go onto the website under Board of Education and all of your presentations for the whole.
Correct. Actually, on the business office page, there is a budget section as well, where every presentation is there. It's labeled by workshop, what the title of the presentation is, and this will be posted tomorrow as well.
On the main part.
Yes, on the front, once you go onto the business office, go to the left-hand side, budget information, and everything will pop up right there, as well as all the voting requirements, all the district clerk information for the vote is up there as well.
It's also under the Board of Education, as well there too. But yeah, there's great, awesome presentations.
Thank you.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I refer to them, like, people ask, like, all different information, like class sizes, to all here, so people really, they're great presentations, great.
So Dr. Becerra and I did present to the PTA last week, I believe it was. We are also presenting this to all of our buildings. Our staff are most of them are community members voting on the budget as well. So we feel it's important for them to be fully informed. So we have met with Clayton Huey this morning. We'll be meeting with the middle school tomorrow and the high school on Monday, just to give them as well this very same presentation so they can get a clear understanding of what our goals are going forward and what we're proposing for next year.
Well, we certainly want to thank you, Kerry and Ron, for all your hard work on this. It's an arduous process, and we feel like we have a really responsible budget moving forward, and it's a great spending plan for us to continue to move toward our Board of Ed goals and to, more importantly, best serve the needs of the children of the district, because that's really what it's all about, right? So we hope that everybody comes out on May 17th. I got that date right? Finally got a date right, so. Come on out May 17th and vote. I would be remiss if I didn't say we will miss you, Mr. Kelly. As he's elected not to rerun this year. I've been a valuable member of the team. I'm sure we'll discuss this again in June. But I did want to just mention that as our board members are listed here on the ballot. So thank you for your service, Tom.
Thank you.
So that brings us to general comments from the public. No? Okay. So, motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion,
Second.
second. Second?
Second.
Did I skip
Too
one?
slow.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Motion to move into executive session, the purpose of which to discuss personnel, the matters of which would be an undue invasion of privacy. Motion, second,
Second.
all in favor?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Our next meeting will be May 4th, that was ours. Next board will be May 25th, 2022. Executive session at 6, action meeting approximately at 7. And for anybody who's listening, when we come out of exec, we will not be taking any action at all. Nothing to vote on. Thank you very much for coming. You've been watching at home. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time, May 25th.
So